On January 17, 2025, the football world lost one of its greatest heroes. Denis Law, the legendary Scottish forward known as the King of Old Trafford, died at the age of 84 after a long battle with dementia. This was indeed a horrific end for a man who had given everything to the beautiful game. But this tragic conclusion was just the final chapter in a life defined by fighting against impossible odds. How did a boy once described as weak, puny and bespectacled, who grew up barefoot in poverty, become one of football's most celebrated kings? Denis Law's story begins in Aberdeen, Scotland. Born on February 24, 1940, he was the youngest of 7 children in a poor fisherman's family. They lived in a cramped council tenement flat. Denis went barefoot until he was 12 years old, his feet toughened by the cobbled streets. His first pair of football boots was a second-hand birthday present from a kind neighbour. But Denis faced an even bigger challenge than poverty. He was born with a severe squint called strabismus that left him visually impaired. His classmates nicknamed him Cockeye, and the condition was so bad that he had to play football with one eye closed just to see straight. The squint affected his depth perception, making it nearly impossible for him to judge distances. Yet, this apparent weakness became his greatest strength. Unable to rely on his sight alone, young Denis was forced to develop a supernatural sense of anticipation. He learned to predict where the ball would go, how defenders would move, and where the goal was located, building a mental map of the pitch that was more instinctual than visual. This necessity to think seconds quicker than his opponents forged the predatory instincts that would later make him unstoppable. When offered a place at Aberdeen Grammar School, he turned it down because their curriculum required him to play rugby instead of football. He chose Paris Academy instead, showing his unwavering commitment to his craft. In April 1955, everything changed. Denis was spotted by scout Archie Beattie and signed by Huddersfield Town at just 14 years old. The club's manager delivered an assessment that would become legendary for being completely wrong. The boy's a freak. Never did I see a less likely football prospect. Weak, puny and bespectacled. But Huddersfield saw something special. They paid for an operation to correct Denis's squint. The surgery was transformative. It unlocked a newfound confidence that had been trapped behind his physical limitations. His sight was corrected, but the extraordinary instincts he had developed while playing with one eye remained. Now he had the perfect combination: clear vision plus that supernatural awareness. Denis made his professional debut on Christmas Eve 1956 at just 16 years and 10 months old. 2 days later, he scored his first professional goal. The turning point came with manager Bill Shankly's arrival. Where others saw physical frailty, Shankly saw a football brain. He moved Denis to a central striking role and built his confidence. When Manchester United offered £10,000 for the teenager, Shankly rejected it outright, convinced of the boy's future greatness. It's incredible how someone can turn their biggest weakness into their greatest strength. It makes you wonder what other challenges he had to overcome on his journey to becoming a legend. Before we get into that incredible story, if you're enjoying this tale of resilience and determination, make sure to hit that subscribe button and let us know in the comments, who is the most resilient player you've ever seen? In March 1960, Denis left Huddersfield for Manchester City in a British record transfer worth $55,000. He finished as their top scorer with 23 goals. One of football's most bizarre moments happened there. He scored 6 goals in an FA Cup tie against Luton Town, only for the match to be abandoned due to a waterlogged pitch. The lure of higher wages took him to Italy in 1961, where Torino paid another record fee of $110,000. What followed was a year that seemed disastrous, but actually made him the complete player. Italian football was dominated by Catenaccio, an ultra-defensive system with cynical, often violent tactics. Denis struggled to adapt. Off the pitch, his life was chaotic, constantly followed by paparazzi, breaking club rules, and involved in a serious car crash that left teammate Joe Baker in a coma. The final straw came when his own manager instructed the referee to send him off for taking a throw-in against orders. Denis fled back to Scotland, but this difficult year was actually crucial for his development. Italy had been a brutal education champion in the game's dark arts. He learned to deal with systematic fouling, psychological pressure, and betrayal. When he returned to English football, the physical challenges seemed manageable by comparison. The player Matt Busby would eventually sign wasn't just talented, he was a weapon tempered in the fiercest fires. In August 1962, Sir Matt Busby finally got his man, signing Dennis from Torino for a new British record fee of $150,000. The impact was immediate and spectacular. He scored on his debut and in his first season led United to victory in the 1963 FA Cup final. The 1963-64 season was when Dennis truly announced himself to the world. He scored an incredible 46 goals across all competitions, a club record that still stands today. This phenomenal achievement earned him the 1964 Ballon d'Or as European Footballer of the Year, making him the only Scottish player ever to win football's highest individual honour. Dennis became the catalyst for Manchester United's rise from the ashes of the Munich air disaster. His goals drove them to First Division championships in 1965 and 1967. The fans at Old Trafford, especially those in the Stretford end, adored him completely. They gave him the perfect nickname, the King. His trademark celebration, a single arm raised to the sky, became an iconic image copied by children across Britain. Dennis formed one-third of arguably the greatest attacking trio in football history, the holy trinity of Best Law and Charlton. Their styles were perfectly complementary. Sir Bobby Charlton was the elegant general, George Best, the maverick genius, and Dennis, the apex predator who turned their creativity into goals. What made them truly special was their individual recognition. All three won the Ballon d'Or during the 1960s. Dennis in 1964, Charlton in 1966, and Best in 1968. No other club forward line has ever achieved such a complete sweep of football's highest individual honour. For all his success at Manchester United, Dennis's heart beat with fierce Scottish pride. Over a 16-year international career, he earned 55 caps and scored 30 goals, a tally that remains the joint all-time record for Scotland. He scored 3 hat-tricks for his country, including 2 4-goal performances. The pinnacle came on April 15, 1967, when Scotland travelled to Wembley to face England. This wasn't just any England team, they were the reigning World Cup champions, unbeaten in 19 matches. Dennis tormented the English defence and in the 27th minute scored the opening goal that set Scotland on their way to a famous 3-2 victory. The result sent Scottish fans wild. They invaded the Wembley pitch, many proclaiming their team the new unofficial world champions. It was a profound moment of national pride, a symbolic triumph over their greatest rivals at their peak. But every hero's story has its darkest chapter. For Dennis, it revolved around a persistent knee injury that would ultimately rob him of his greatest moment. The problem dated back to his time at Huddersfield. Throughout the 1960s, the injury plagued him constantly. He was frequently given cortisone injections, not to heal the injury, but simply as a painkiller to allow him to keep playing. This long battle with his own body reached its heartbreaking climax in 1968. As Manchester United marched towards the European Cup final, Dennis's knee finally gave way completely. He was forced to miss the final against Benfica at Wembley, while his teammates made history by becoming the first English club to conquer Europe. Dennis watched the triumph from his hospital bed, recovering from yet another knee operation. The image of Matt Busby visiting him in the hospital the next day, bringing the European Cup to his bedside, remains one of football's most poignant moments. It was United's greatest achievement, yet it became a monument to his own profound personal anguish. After 11 glorious years, Dennis's time as the King came to a quiet end. He was given a free transfer in 1973 and rejoined Manchester City. His final season created one of football's most emotionally complex moments. On April 27, 1974, Dennis returned to Old Trafford wearing Manchester City's sky blue to face a United side destined for relegation. In the 81st minute, the ball fell to him in the penalty box. Acting on pure instinct, he swivelled and scored with an audacious backheel. His reaction was immediate and heartbreaking. There was no celebration. His shoulders slumped as he turned away. He asked to be substituted immediately and walked slowly from the pitch with his head bowed. He would later confess, "I have seldom felt so depressed as I did that weekend." That instinctive back heel was his last ever touch in league football. Many misunderstood this moment as betrayal, but it was actually the ultimate expression of his loyalty. In that split second, two identities collided. The professional goalscorer acted on pure reflex, but his emotional reaction revealed where his heart truly lay. Even in a sky blue shirt, Denis Law remained the king of Old Trafford. After retiring, Denis became a respected voice in football media and devoted himself to extensive charity work. In 2012, he founded the Denis Law Legacy Trust in Aberdeen, focusing on using sport to reduce youth crime and promote health in the community. In August 2021, Denis showed one final act of courage by publicly announcing his diagnosis with mixed dementia, including Alzheimer's disease. His statement was defiant. "I am at the point where I feel I want to be open about my condition. I know the road ahead will be hard, demanding, painful, and ever-changing." Denis used his diagnosis to become a powerful advocate, working with the Alzheimer's Society to raise awareness about the link between football and neurodegenerative disease. He believed firmly in the connection, stating, "What else would it be? That was what caused damage to the brain." This final chapter showed the same courage that had defined his playing career. The on-field bravery that made him the king was mirrored by his willingness to confront his illness publicly, transforming personal vulnerability into advocacy for future generations. Denis Law's story is one of extraordinary resilience, from the granite streets of Aberdeen to the biggest stages in world football. He proved that physical limitations don't define us, that apparent weaknesses can become our greatest strengths, and that true champions fight their battles both on and off the pitch. What's your favourite memory of the King? Share it with us in the comments below, and thanks for watching.